In a quiet town, nestled between rolling green hills, there lived an old woman named Mrs. Eleanor. She had spent her entire life in the town, caring for her magnificent garden. Her garden was the heart of the community, overflowing with vibrant flowers, fragrant herbs, and fresh vegetables. Despite her dedication, Mrs. Eleanor often felt that her life was insignificant and ordinary. She admired the explorers who traveled far and wide and the inventors who brought new wonders to the world. One bright afternoon, while tending to her plants, she noticed a young boy named Oliver peeking at her from behind the fence. His eyes sparkled with curiosity. "Ah, hello there, Oliver," Mrs. Eleanor greeted warmly. "Would you like to help me with the garden?" Oliver eagerly nodded and climbed over the fence. As they worked side by side, Mrs. Eleanor shared stories about life in the town. She spoke of the joy in planting seeds and watching them grow, the satisfaction of harvesting fresh produce, and the happiness of sharing her crops with others. After they finished, Oliver looked around and said, "Mrs. Eleanor, your garden is magical. You make our town beautiful. And you keep us all fed and happy." Touched by his words, Mrs. Eleanor smiled but sighed. "Thank you, Oliver, but sometimes I feel my life is quite ordinary compared to others." Oliver thought for a moment and then said, "Come with me, I want to show you something." He took Mrs. Eleanor's hand and led her through the town. They visited different homes, and at each stop, someone had a story to tell. A mother shared how Mrs. Eleanor's herbs had helped heal her sick child. An elderly man spoke of how her flowers had brightened his days after losing his wife. A young couple expressed gratitude for the fresh vegetables that had sustained them through tough times. At last, Oliver brought Mrs. Eleanor to the town square, where a group of townspeople had gathered. In front of them stood a stunning display, made of flowers, herbs, and vegetables from her garden. "This is our way of saying thank you," Oliver said. "You've touched all our lives in ways you might not have noticed. But we see it, and we are grateful." Tears welled in Mrs. Eleanor's eyes as she looked at the smiling faces around her. In that moment, she realized that her life was far from ordinary. Her garden was not just a collection of plants. It was a source of nourishment, healing, and happiness for the entire town. From that day forward, Mrs. Eleanor tended to her garden with a renewed sense of purpose, knowing that every seed she planted made a difference. And so, her story became a testament to the power of small, everyday actions. She learned to cherish each moment, and to find greatness in the simple act of nurturing life.